Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today on behalf of AXA. It's been a fascinating conference so far, and I know that there is more to come in this afternoon's sessions. I've always been a fan of technology, of gadgets generally, and of sci-fi. Lately, though, the explosion and advancement in technology has been truly remarkable. Here we are at a conference about Britain's smart cities, and I'm going to be talking about driverless cars. I certainly didn't think I would be making any kind of speech like this when I entered the insurance industry, though I suppose, as we've heard, today is Back to the Future Day, so maybe I should have anticipated it. On the subject of movies, going back to 1990, some of you in the room will be old enough to remember the release of a film called Total Recall. This was set in 2084, and there is a scene in which Arnold Schwarzenegger's character is attempting to escape, and he jumps into a driverless taxi, a Johnny cab. Alas, the robot could not marry Arnie's swear words with any known destination, and the end result is our hero rips out the robot to be able to get it to move. Now, glossing over the no doubt vast insurance claim that the taxi company probably submitted after it was found in an alleyway and on fire, it is worth bearing in mind that the driverless car has been the staple of science fiction for many years. The truth is, however, that now they're almost a reality. We know that Google have been testing the technology for the past few years, and Volvo are due to put 100 semi-autonomous vehicles on the roads of Gothenburg in January 2017. And here in the UK, there are 3 government-funded driverless cars projects that are getting underway. So why am I here? Well, I'm incredibly proud that AXA are the insurance partner for 2 out of the 3 UK trials, Ventura in Bristol and UK Autodrive in Milton Keynes. That means that we will be part of the team that enables these cars to get onto our roads as soon as possible. Going back to Arnie, then, 2084 was a bit off the mark. Whilst estimates on the timelines for driverless cars do vary, recent research by KPMG suggests that semi-autonomous vehicles, where you can take your hands off the steering wheel, will be commonplace by 2025, and fully autonomous vehicles will be coming into the market around 2030. This is something we can actually absolutely appreciate and are working towards accelerating those dates if at all possible. Often insurance companies don't get the credit they deserve for their constant evolution. Ours is an industry that is centuries old, tracing its roots back to London coffee shops in the 17th century, where the marine insurance market was created. We've seen no end of changes in that time, but every time risk evolves, so do we. Every time our customers need a new form of protection, we provide it. More often than not, technological innovation requires innovative solutions in businesses that you may not have had in mind during the development process. And that is why we at AXA are so excited about smart cities and what their potential means for our customers. Data, connectivity, and the Internet of Things have changed the way we look at the world, and crucially, for insurers, how we interact with it. Over 90% of data has been created in the last 4 years. If that sounds strange, consider that every minute of every day, there are somewhere in the region of 3 million Google searches, 400,000 tweets, 300,000 photographs uploaded, and 300,000 Facebook statuses updated. 10 years ago, there were already 500 million connected devices. These were mostly phones. Today, there are 8 billion, and analysts forecast that there will be 50 billion by 2020. Incredibly, they reckon there will be 1 trillion connected devices by 2030. So I think it's fair to say that the connected home will be a staple part of the smart city. Smart thermostats such as Hive are becoming more commonplace, and we're beginning to see the emergence of smart locks and smart lights. I've got a little app on my phone which lets me change the lights at home. Good for freaking the wife out when I'm away on business, clearly. Some people have suggested this technology won't really catch on. Maybe it's just a fad. But I understand that those customers that have installed Hive, 50% of them interact with the app at least once every day. If you aren't a Hive user, Ask yourself when you last changed your heating settings. Maybe do that twice, a few times a year, similar. But with that lack of interaction, think what energy you are wasting just because you haven't got round to altering things. These are all products with the customer at the centre of the proposition, and that doesn't stop when linking them to insurance solutions. If, for example, a connected device such as a fridge, freezer or television breaks or is stolen, there could in the future be a good chance that your insurer may know about it before you do, if you let them. But why would you let them have access to such information? Maybe because the digital footprint that devices and customers leave means that claims processes can begin automatically. It's not a huge leap to imagine arriving home one day and meeting a repair engineer at the door who knows that your boiler or freezer is broken or breaking before you actually know yourself. That approach also naturally reduces the capacity for fraud, meaning that the bureaucratic claim form may become a thing of the past. Products can be repaired or replaced with minimal hassle, and that, of course, would allow for lower premiums, and who doesn't want that? As the home is becoming more connected, so are we as individuals, and this is where health tech is playing a major role. AXA PPP Healthcare is doing some really interesting work in this area, partnering with 2020 Health and the London Design Museum to put on the Health Tech Awards. There were some truly remarkable winners in this year's competition. In the Manage My Condition category, the winner was an innovative company who developed a home testing system to forewarn those who suffer recurrent chest infections of an impending flare-up. The ultimate aim of such technology, of course, is the hope of reducing hospital admissions and improving healthcare. With ever-increasing demands on local services, particularly in cities, being able to harness such technology will be incredibly useful. To the here and now then, how many people in the room are wearing Jawbones or Fitbits? Can I have a show of hands? I'm surprised because, you know, where I usually am, they're becoming almost ubiquitous. The problem is they're very addictive. It's in a good way, of course. I've been here all day, and I already know that I'm going to have to go out for a much longer walk this evening to get my steps up. Otherwise, I won't sleep. And then it will tell me that I didn't sleep, and so it goes on. It's simplistic to say, but health tech has the power to change behaviour, simply through the provision of information like this. And that information, of course, is incredibly interesting to insurers. I've personally had no inclination to exercise for years, but since getting my Fitbit a year ago, I have actually lost weight. Might not look like it, but I have, trust me. I do feel better as a result and have greatly improved my blood pressure. As I've said at the start, I do love technology, and it is changing the lives of many for the better. Driverless cars can bring a similar transformation, and doing so, they will fundamentally alter the insurance market as we know it today. At this point, to consider how driverless cars in smart cities will go hand in hand is perhaps worth taking a whistle-stop tour of motor insurance in the UK. For those with wearable tech, I should warn you we will know if you doze off during this bit. So motor insurance became compulsory in the UK in 1930. Its purpose is to provide protection to road users and pedestrians alike. By 1939, there were 3 million cars on the road, and over time that figure has grown exponentially. Now insurers pay out £27 million every single day in motor claims, with around 35 million vehicles on the road. At this point, I'd like you to pause and consider the fact that we also know that over 90% of accidents on the road are caused by human error. From a safety perspective, with that statistic, I'm sure it's obvious even to the most die-hard petrol heads that cars without humans at the wheel are at least worth taking a look at. The goal must be for us to reduce the number of accidents and the associated damage that they cause. To that end, semi-autonomous, highly autonomous and fully autonomous, so completely driverless vehicles, have the potential to shape our future. They're no longer a concept for Hollywood, but a genuine reality that could have enormous ramifications for road safety. The environment as well, city planning, they could provide transport systems for those currently unable to drive, and yes, of course, transform the motor insurance market. I think that in the short term, a lot of the success of driverless cars hinges on influencing public perception and delivering on that safety aspect. It's especially true given that, understandably, not everyone is convinced that they would be comfortable handing over control and doing a Sudoku in just the way that people were very wary of airplanes in the advent of commercial air travel. It's not just autonomy that's important in this area, it is connectivity as well. Something that will be discussed a lot today, I would expect, and is the essence of smart cities. The problem with connectivity is that whilst bringing great benefit, it also exposes the vehicle to new risks. And this has been highlighted recently with publicity around a Jeep being hijacked by some hackers in the States. I don't want to understate it. The threat of cyber risks is real, but we have to recognise that we live in a connected world, and we need to deal with the complications that brings, not simply abandon progress because someone with criminal intent can cause issues. It's not just our vehicles we want to keep safe from cyber risks, it's all our machines. I've mentioned nervousness around early air travel, coincidentally a means of transport where now the vast majority of the journey doesn't involve human input. It's not unusual for innovative ideas to be faced with initial disapproval. In 1825, some people were so opposed to train travel that they claimed that it was not possible for someone to travel in excess of 12 miles an hour without suffering mental issues or having the air sucked out of their lungs. When motor cars were introduced, Nantucket, in the state of Massachusetts, immediately banned them. And this picture shows how an enterprising US mailman got around that ban. The benefits of autonomous vehicles are tremendous, and we need to get that message out. Statistics in this regard should be encouraging the fans and skeptics alike. This is the Bowler Wildcat, the test bed for the Ventura Driverless Consortium, on which we can test many different systems. Many cars already have various levels of help and autonomy, and research from the Motor Vehicle Research Centre in Thatcham suggests that the adoption of autonomous emergency braking, AEB, has led to a reduction in collisions by 15% and injuries by 18%. Now, this technology, AEB, is just one small part of what will make up the driverless car of the future. And we're sure that by incorporating sensing systems that include LiDAR, sonar, and video, we will see an even greater decrease in the frequency and severity of collisions. It's not just about reducing the cost of repairs and injuries. With that reduction in road accidents, for instance, imagine the effects on congestion. And that's before we even consider that the cars will be talking to one another. Connected autonomous vehicles, CAVs, should, the theory goes, be able to travel at constant speeds and at constant distances between vehicles. When one needs to slow down or speed up for whatever reason, the ripple down effect is all but instantaneous, and the entire line of traffic adjusts its speed. If that sounds a bit far-fetched, I would encourage you to look at what is already happening in the haulage industry in North America, where companies such as Peloton Technology are working with freight companies in this regard. Fleets of freight transport lorries can travel in convoy effectively connected by a digital tow bar. Daimler, for example, is absolutely convinced that this platooning is the future of the haulage industry. A lead lorry steered by a professional driver, initially at least, but maybe driving itself in the future, leads a convoy of autonomous vehicles, spaced narrowly apart and which mimic the actions of the first vehicle. This technique boosts fuel efficiency by improving aerodynamics and avoiding needless deceleration by vehicles in the convoy. Now at AXA, that got us thinking, could autonomous and connected vehicles bring significant savings to the UK haulage industry and ultimately to consumers if those savings are passed on? To establish this, we commissioned research which looked at the potential savings for the industry in labour, fuel consumption, insurance and vehicle utilisation. And I think a copy of our report was put on your chairs earlier on. Now, this report estimated that fuel savings would annually be 1.5 billion. Sorry, savings would be 1.5 billion on labour costs, 1.1 billion on fuel, 1.4 billion on insurance, and 13.5 billion on vehicle utilisation over a 10-year period. You can't just look at a one-year period for vehicle utilisation. Now, this all adds up to £33.6 billion of savings after 10 years. A massive figure, and if these savings were passed on, this would mean £150 of annual savings on grocery spend per household in the UK. The study also highlighted one of the other potentially positive impacts of driverless vehicles, namely the substantial environmental impact of reduced emissions. Going back to the numbers as well, CAVs generally produce even bigger benefits. In a report by Atkins, one of our driverless partners on the Venture Consortium, have suggested that the savings they'll bring amount to £51 billion a year by 2030. Returning to the roads themselves, massively reduced collisions and congestion would allow for a potentially radical overhaul of the road network, alleviating some of the pressure that councils across the country no doubt face. That report I mentioned by Atkins states clearly that we cannot keep building roads and adding lanes to meet demands. So CAVs will be the vital next big step for increasing capacity. Also, the report articulates that the potentially improved safety could remove the need for crash barriers, for instance, and when combined with the replacement of signs with in-vehicle information, could lead to much more effective use and improved appearance of road space. As part of Venture, it's fantastic to be working with a truly smart region encompassing Bristol and South Gloucestershire. And I think Bristol's got quite a good positive name check a few times already today. Bristol's Smart City programme is a partnership between the public and private sector and the citizens of Bristol. Its goal is to explore smart, innovative technologies and digital connectivity to meet the city's sustainability challenges using a people-centred approach. That connectivity will be key to delivering the longer-term aim of cars communicating with one another, and indeed the city's infrastructure information can be passed through lampposts and roundabouts, for example. Indeed, things like this are already happening. There is technology alerts that alerts drivers to available parking spaces, and it is in the process of being rolled out in Westminster. Working with parking technology firm Smart Parking, Westminster Council are installing 3,000 infrared sensors in paid-for and disabled parking bays across the West End. These sensors will be able to detect if a car is parked over it and therefore determine whether or not the space is vacant. Using a downloaded app called Parkrite, drivers will be able to use and see in real time parking availability and will be directed to an empty space. Businesses will also be able to use the app or go to the website to make managing deliveries easier. Imagine in the future a connected vehicle linking to that information and just taking you directly to a free parking space. It's generally estimated that around 30% of congestion in cities is caused by drivers slowing down and looking for a parking space. So this innovation represents a smart solution to a recurring problem in cities. But will we even need to bring our cars into the cities in future? Predictions suggest there will be more sharing of vehicles and that intelligent mobility will perhaps bring a combination of different forms of transport throughout your journey. This is the Lutz Pathfinder, and it's a driverless pod that will soon be on designated pedestrianised areas of Milton Keynes and will therefore be the first public trial of highly automated vehicles in the UK. These pods will be rolled out as part of the trial, with users able to book them for the last mile journeys via a mobile app. They will be able to travel at 15 miles per hour, so if you're in Milton Keynes and running late for a meeting, what better way to beat the traffic than jumping in a pod? I've mentioned a number of things that are happening or are in development as we sit here today, but perhaps the most exciting social impact that autonomous motoring technology could have is offering transport solutions for those who, for many reasons, currently find themselves disenfranchised. Elderly people and those with disabilities that prevent them from driving, for example, that currently don't have access to local transportation could benefit from a service that will radically improve their day-to-day lives. In rural areas where people are often faced with the prospect of leaving a home that they love just to be nearer to the core services that they need, automated technology could offer them a genuine choice. That is an incredibly positive message. However, there are, of course, some concerns surrounding driverless technology, and it would be churlish of me not to mention them. The first and understandable one is that some areas, such as the haulage industry and taxis, could see mass disruption to the workforce. The other big one, which I've already mentioned, is around the cybersecurity aspects of connected vehicles. To answer those concerns, I would say they are absolutely valid and need to be fully considered. However, to my mind, the overall benefits and potential positive impact on society from these vehicles overall is too great to ignore. All of these are reasons why ACTS are excited to be playing a leading role in this area. We do see our role in society as protecting people today and investing in their future, and the advent of driverless cars allows us to do both at the same time. When it comes down to it, insurance is a key component to making sure that these cars can be used on UK roads. There is no suggestion at this time that motor insurance would cease to be compulsory, and therefore we are looking at the key issue of liability, i.e. who was responsible at the time of any collision, the person or the car. Practically, we will need clarity on data from vehicles, whether the sensors in telematics can accurately record when the driver hands over control to the car and vice versa. The government will also need to consider the concept of driving with due care and attention. If you can take your hands off the wheel, do you still need to monitor the road? Driver behaviour would alter entirely. In the long term, my personal view is that the only way these vehicles will be a success is if you can hand over complete control. Why else would you buy one or want to travel in one? If that proves to be the case, liability will shift from the personal to the car itself, either by way of the manufacturer, the software provider, or a combination of all interested parties. That is a challenge to the insurance industry, but it is one that we should relish. These vehicles do have the potential to revolutionise people's lives for the better. Britain's smart cities can be the starting point and the ultimate enabler. Once the cars are proven to work in an urban environment, it is only a matter of time before they can be replicated across the country. I've seen cities described as incubators of innovation, and smart cities will be exactly that. It's an exciting time. It genuinely feels like Britain could be a world leader, a trailblazer, and a standard setter. That's why it's fantastic to see the Minister Ed Vaizey here, as well as Mark Prisk MP and the Mayor of London. I would like to place my thanks on record for them coming today. I saw Michael Portillo last week talking with great passion about the railways. He emphasised how far ahead of the rest of the world we were in the 1800s with our investment in the railway network and the massive impact that had both on the economy and the lives of our people. Maybe this is a similar such time, and if we grasp the nettle, we can again push Britain to the forefront of transport innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to finish by returning to Mr. Schwarzenegger. As a former governor of California, he has no doubt been very aware of Google's work in this area, but I really do think that Britain's smart cities can steal a march on the competition. The UK has a fantastic export in the British legal system. We also have the most sophisticated insurance market in the world. The world will, to a large extent, be looking at how we deal with the legal and insurance implications that this and similar technologies pose. We are absolutely up for that challenge, and we look forward to working with the government and Britain's smart cities to bring driverless cars to the UK. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to meeting many of you later and at the drinks reception after the conference. Thank you.
Thanks very much to David Williams for this excellent presentation. We've got a few minutes, just about 3-4 minutes for questions, so perhaps we could just grab a couple of seats. And who wants to kick off with a question? Given this speech, otherwise I can kick off. Okay, well, why don't What's your, I mean, in terms of, you talked, I mean, your speech was absolutely fascinating, but one of the key things from the perspective of insurance, as you pointed out, is liability.
Yes.
I mean, what realistically do you think is going to happen? Do you think, literally, if we live one day in a world where Apple or Google are making cars and making these cars, that they will have complete liability for anything going wrong that's actually a technical issue? So do you think the whole thing is going to change completely, or do you think that some sort of compromise along the lines you might have indicated is going to be the way forward?
I think things will change completely, but I don't think it's clear what the end result will be. Some people might have seen statements from people like Volvo saying that they will accept absolute responsibility for any accidents that are caused by their driverless vehicles when they put them out there. I think the essential thing to bear in mind is that in the UK, motor insurance is compulsory, and the reason for that is to protect other road users, pedestrians generally. And that's not going to change. So the important thing from our perspective is that if somebody is unfortunately injured in an accident where a driverless vehicle is involved, not necessarily causing it, but is involved, that there is some form of policy that people don't have to worry about having to wait 7 years while loads of clever lawyers argue whether it's the manufacturer or the software programmer or the person that's maintaining things. So at AXA we write motor insurance, but we write every other type of insurance as well. So I can see a different product in the future, less based maybe on the individual driver, because in the UK everything's based around the individual driver, maybe being based around the vehicle, but providing cover for all those connected parties. So the manufacturer, software programmer, occupant, hirer, owner, all those sorts of things. So it's not clear exactly where the liability will lie, but I think the message we need to get out there is twofold. One, there will be a dramatic reduction in accidents, so that's a great thing. And two, there will be insurance products which make sure that people do get compensation when they're injured.
Thank you. If we could have the microphone there, if you just remind us who you are.
Sure, you've probably heard far too much of me already, but I've got an interesting thought actually. Do you think the insurance and legal industries will move at the same pace of innovation that they are required in this area as the technology itself? Because we can clearly see the technology is advancing quickly, and it will be available soon, and then there will be a compelling need for us to get it on the streets and actually start using it. Will the rest of the world get there too?
I'm pleased you asked that question, because if you mention the legal community, it gives me an opportunity to mention my favourite quote. If you look at articles in the States, there was one which suggested that to truly enjoy driverless cars, first we'll have to kill all the personal injury lawyers. Now, the reason for that was that lawyers like a bit of a blur, because they can argue about it forever and run up some massive fees. And we've made this point. I was at a meeting in Whitehall earlier this week that we will need a bit of clarity from the government in that regard. But strangely, whilst I'll criticise them, legal firms are quite innovative and quite quick off the mark, particularly to recognise an opportunity. With regard to insurers, we've got a terrible reputation. We take forever to get things sorted out, and usually somebody comes to us at the last minute and we think, oh, that doesn't look like something we know, we can't help. That's exactly why AXA and RSA in the Greenwich Consortia, that's why we're involved early. So yes, we will have products, practices, claims details, everything ready, plenty of time before driverless cars are on the road, because we're being involved at the outset.
Do you have a rejoinder?
Well, I was just going to say thank you, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty of scope for blurring the lines as we decide which bit of software was at fault when two cars hit each other.
But I think the key thing is that if somebody is injured, let's get them rehabilitated, paid, whatever, get damage repaired, and then leave the law firms and insurance companies to argue about that. So it's making sure that there is that coverage, because otherwise we won't get public acceptance, and that is going to be the biggest battle for driverless cars.
On which note, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Thank you.